all based on how the subdivision
is created. Okay.
Okay.
So that replacement then, since that's not a requirement, would be, it could go somewhere else. So if it's payment in lieu instead of agreeing to condition to do it on up Nineveh, would that money then be in our area and kept in our area?
Yes, that money would go toward building a sidewalk in front of the name or another location where in conjunction with.
Near the golf course.
Somewhere on the property in the affected area.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. And just a last note, I do appreciate the investment that company and everyone has done for Waynesville for the golf course. The improvement has been very positive, I think, for that neighborhood.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll let you go.
Lene McAden.
My thoughts, Mayor,
Could you come to the podium and say your name for the record, please?
If you can give your name and address to
Oh, no,
the.
no address.
Oh, yeah, forget about the address. Just your name.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm Linnea McAden. I do live on Longview Drive on the golf course.
Okay.
But my comments kind of mirror Annette's, so I won't repeat what she said.
She
So I
kinda
was just
answered
going to
your
withdraw
question.
my name.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
ma'am. Okay. So. Is there anyone else would like to speak in favor? If you would, we'll call them up first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you still have some names.
No, these are other comments. These are not related to this. Or is there anyone else who wants to speak on the Greenview subdivision publicly?
Welcome for or against.
Either for or against.
Either for or against, you're welcome to speak. Okay. All right, thank you. Okay. Then I'll ask
We have another question for Olga.
Okay. Olga, could you please come back up and the board has some more questions they would like to ask you.
So I want to circle back to that question of the sidewalk in lieu of, and did staff look at other locations within the location? And if so, did they arrive at the location outlined on the slide as the best option?
we did look in this area. We went and measured some footage, especially along Longview. So the development, as Martin noted, is required to put a sidewalk for the street frontage. In this case, just for the broader audience, it is the lane. 5 feet sidewalk would be required. There are no existing sidewalks around. There are a lot of steep slope areas. It wouldn't be consistent. It wouldn't serve a public benefit because somebody would have to literally walk along the curbs to somebody's neighborhood just to dead end there and walk on their sidewalk. Now, there is a continuation that would make sense to the staff. That's why we would like to use this payment in lieu and obtain easement to make it a public sidewalk for all residents.
And that roughly starts at the foot of the hill by the main entrance to the club and then goes up the hill towards Longview,
Where
correct?
the old, golf cart paths, yes, roughly. We
Yeah.
would request the same length as they would have to build for this subdivision. And it roughly starts at the main building, just down the intersection of Country Club Drive and Longview.
And do you have, off the top of your head, do you know how many feet we're talking about?
We would ask for as many as their lane, so if it's 950, we would ask for that. And the width of it, 15 up to 20 feet, enough to construct at 5 feet side.
Okay,
Ask for that.
perfect.
And we did have our development services and public service director Jeff Steins measuring and looking at that area. Yeah.
Okay.
As part of the requirements, it says payment in lieu. Can we make that a payment in lieu with the requirement that it go toward 950 feet
Yeah, you can
near
look at
the,
it, yeah.
I'm asking the attorney.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Yes.
so you, I mean, and that is the nature of it's a payment in lieu of the precise amount of required.
So we wouldn't have to make a specific ask, it would be covered by
Correct.
that. And the applicant is
It's an
okay,
apples to apples situation.
and the applicant is,
Yeah, I think the thing to understand is, you know, and we've had this discussion somewhat in all with staff, is, it's important, you know, both from a golf safety standpoint to not get, let's say, pedestrians too close to golf, but immediately adjacent roadways, you know, so there's probably shared exposure between vehicles and parent golf shops, if you will. You know, the golfers are responsible for their golf shops, as are, you know.
you know, I do live at the Waynesville Country Inn, and I'm very well aware of dodging golf balls. Yeah.
As drivers are responsible for what they make.
This is not the best time of year for golfers. They are just getting warmed up and the golf balls go all over the place. I have a big basket on my
Dust off
front
the
porch.
roads, right?
Yes.
So in parallel with those roadway sections, I think is appropriate. And there's still some tough topography concern for there, but I think there's great.
That would be good for pedestrians.
Yeah.
You know, being able to walk for more like you were referring to.
Yeah.
Having a sidewalk.
I'm sorry, I was just getting clarification on where that.
The sidewalk they're referring to would be helpful to pedestrians, you know, to be able to walk further.
It's like going up towards the driving range.
Can you show that slide
It's-
again?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going up towards the driving range area.
So,
Jesse, you're on.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's see that slide again. So, okay, so I will walk here. These are the new country club cottages. Just west, the individual versus the big deal, they go inside.
Sidewalk, yeah.
This is the country club cottages. Here, there is the main building for the country club. And that's a section of club and Longview. The upper part of Longview. This area is more accessible, buildable as well, more shallow. This part, and this is very rough. Spatial length maintained will be nice, but that's the area we find hard to show.
There we go.
Correct, there you go. On this, on those. On this. Road.
And then up toward Longview.
Longview, upper part of Longview.
Well, and for members of the public who are interested in this question, all of the materials are included in tonight's agenda packet, which is online. You're welcome.
I move we close the public hearing.
Okay,
I'll second.
I'll second. Anyone like to?
1 minute.
It appears to me, well, I'd like to propose, if you don't mind, a
Yeah.
couple of additions to the conditions that the planning board had, which was number 3, the payment in lieu, with the added provision that we obtain a specific easement along Nineveh and Longview roads from the country club.
That's item number 4, right?
It was 4, I thought it was 3. But that's
4. The hydrants are number 3.
Okay, I'm sorry. And then the one about civic space, I wanted to just add the clarification that there would be guaranteed access to the country club green space for the owners of these properties.
It's, I believe it's part of their
There's
lot.
no, yes, I'm just looking at, they may not develop it this way. They may, things could change. So I just wanted to make sure that the owners of these lots have guaranteed access to the green space of the country club.
The restricted covenants haven't been reported yet, so,
And they could always be changed.
it could.
I mean, I'm just looking to, it's just the public civic space. That's part, I want to make sure that the residents have that right to have some use of civic space since we are, not requiring that.
Right. We want it to be pedestrian friendly. That's what you're trying to say.
Well,
I got you. All right, but that's in your motion, correct?
yeah, that's the two things I'd like. I haven't actually made.
We haven't made the motion yet.
Okay. You want to go ahead and make the motion?
Well, no, let's hear what.
I agree with those.
You agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, but anything else to add to it?
Anthony, why don't you make the motion?
I'll make a motion that we.
He put it off already.
Make a motion to find the conditional map amendment as proposed, as being consistent with the 2035 plan and reasonable in the public interest in that it continues to promote smart growth principles in land use planning and zoning, encourages infill, mixed use and context sensitive development, reinforces the unique character of Waynesville with the following conditions. Lots width standards for CCRL shall not apply. 2, LDS standards for the proposed lane within the subdivision shall not apply. 3, at both hydrant locations, the proposed lane needs to be at least 26 feet wide. The plan needs to be adjusted prior to issuance of the building permit to comply with fire and building codes. 4, the developer will pay payment in lieu for sidewalk constructions contingent that it be with the
Staff recommendations.
5, civic space requirements of the LDS. Chapter 7 shall not apply as the project claims for the credit of existing amenities, except that they must be guaranteed access to the green space of the current country club. 6, landscaping requirements of the LDS Chapter 8 shall not apply as the project will propose custom landscaping plan. 7, minimum spacing requirements between the driveways and CCRL of the LDS Chapter 9 shall not apply.
And Anthony, before you finish, we wanted to request the specific easement along Longview and Nineveh as set forth on the
When you
proposal.
said staff recommendation, consistent with staff.
But the staff said either that or somewhere else for that sort of things. Didn't they? They made the specific recommendation. That's it.
Yeah,
Okay,
Very
I'm
specific
sorry.
recommendations.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Candace, did you get all that?
It's a long one.
Would you like him to repeat?
I can. No, she's got it on recording.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Got a second with Julie. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, so like sign.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the conditions of the conditional district map in that they create a range of housing opportunities and choices, encourage new housing inside Waynesville city limits and extraterritorial jurisdictions, promotes a diverse housing stock, including market rate, workforce housing, and affordable options that apply to a variety of households.
Second.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second with Chuck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so like sign. Good order.
Mr. Mayor, attached to the slips for the folks who signed up to speak during the public hearing, I found 2 lost public comment cards that have to do with recreation facility conditions. So, there are 2 lost unrecognized public comments that the board may choose or not choose to recognize.
We definitely choose. If you guys would like to speak, I don't have a problem.
Absolutely.
Sorry about it.
There's a Rumi Halsaria. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, sir. You got under the paperwork up here.
So good evening, Mayor and council members. The name is Kakarika, Rumi Kakarika. And I've been asked to speak on behalf of the tennis community here in Waynesville and the condition of our courts. I will say I'm also the tennis coach for Tuscola High School. So I have students out there 5 days a week, 8 months of the year. And our tennis community is quite active. We have a lot of groups that have contracted to Parks and Rec for the time as high school. Currently, the conditions are the court, they're getting quite bad. Last time the courts were redone was, we're thinking about 8 years ago, and it was a patch job. Currently, those cracks have widened to the point where they're dangerous. We have sunken areas of the court that gather water, and algae forms in there, makes those extremely slippery. We have had injuries out there on the court with community members. I'm concerned that my high school players will also have injury. And that's our home court. So when we have other teams over and they see on the courts the cracks that have been spray painted with X's and the watch your step and the play at your own risk sign, not exactly the message we want to send. So we're asking to really have that examined and see if we can start moving toward a better solution for a better court that allows our community, which is again very rich, a lot of members, and have our courts in place.
Thank you, sir. Okay, you have one more. James Gross. James Gross. Yeah. Sorry, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is James Gross. I moved here 7 years ago, built a home up on Rapid Skin. And part of the criteria of coming here is the characteristics of your city. It is a beautiful city. Other criteria was consideration and use of your public recreation facilities, particularly the tennis courts. In those 7 years, I've seen so little maintenance on the courts that it's become a liability for the users, just as Remy was just discussing with you momentarily. These asphalt courts have a lifespan of approximately 20 to 25 years. That's accepting normal maintenance patterns, which requires a painting every 2 to 4 years and patching within that time period. These courts in my 7 years here have never been painted or resurfaced. The only thing that has happened is the recreation facility or the department allowed a pressure cleaning on the courts, which kind of evaporated the lines and expanded the cracks that are already in the court, which creates a further liability, particularly for the seniors who use it in the morning and the people like me who kind of use it daily. So I just ask you, just as Remy has, to explore the opportunity to reconsider replacing the courts, not repairing them. They're horrible. They're beyond repair. Anyhow, appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to our presentations. We have a presentation for our four stewards on our activities in the watershed. Dr. Peter Bates.
Mayor, could I entertain a 5-minute break
Okay.
before that will allow people to clear
Before you
out?
come up, we're going to take a 5-minute break. And thank you all for coming out. Yeah, thank you all. Yeah. Sorry. They can sound on this.
Did I get those last two? I think it was
They may be. Good shot.
I guess we've got this.
We've talked about that for years.
But I go back to school. That's the only example I don't disagree with
Or a lens, you know, try to lay off the water a little bit. You okay? Hold this up.
How can he do that?
I don't know.
Who said that?
Sure.
Chuck's 6 months younger than we are.
I had what's his name, Brandon from the Clouds up there asking to see after the new wastewater treatment plant opens for that meeting. Go back to putting the grease.
That's the state law. Yeah.
Ain't that under the, I've got it in there, so environmental quality of water division or something like that. Maybe that's really, but you couldn't put grease.
Yeah, he can't. I don't know why. I don't know why Fritz said, you haven't been able to separate these things from there.
He's the only one that I know of.
Well,
The person has their own.
As I understand it, the new Dodge City, he's going to pull all of his plumbing.
The other day,
Please, I've got a,
It's in the bag.
no, I've got.
He's got, John's got his own.
Yeah.
John mixes this with mine.
got pocket hits.
This is good Waynesville water right.
I do it every day. I put it in. But anyway, I'll just.
When he puts it in our super plan, it's just like acts over us in our super plan. And he needs to recognize that he's adding to everybody's cost. God, you ought to see what's that.
I can imagine.
When I was, my first job was watching the sawmill. Remember?
Yeah,
It was the
yeah.
sawmill.
I
It
like
was
this one.
up there by where up here is. And we used to take
The project.
we have to lift it up over the top. And we dumped it in the dump.
400 degrees.
Oh, yeah. And it's a wonder
They're good, they're good, sir.
somebody didn't
You get. Thanks for
burn
coming.
his place out.
Yeah, that. Think they can call us.
Fish shot. And I've never been more scared in my life.
Chicken dinner.
My dad, I don't, have you ever heard of something? I'm sorry. It was a matter of fact, directly across the street from those houses they built. As a matter of
Dad,
fact.
Jack, he was a good man.
Thank you, sir.
I love that guy. Yeah, I do understand.
Really?
I used to go cut wood with him. He'd take 6 foot. He was freaking hot. He was nuts. He's a good man. You guys are doing great. Making the Caldwell's look good around. Did your mom get her house fixed? The insurance company. They wouldn't back her up. Really?
And maybe about. And my dad,
They bought me.
They said it wasn't like the
well,
I don't know the legalities of all
I don't know, you know, that's all we have insurance. You know, if they afford it,
Thursday. When it pops back up here, I'll be so
I remember live.
Yeah.
Like it was yesterday.
Sit here racking my brain like I have no idea what I was doing.
Wales.
Yeah.
Sister, she keeps driving. She does, she just puts the grade in five. It's not there yet, I was there just the other day.
All right, we'll see you later.
I love you guys. Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't blame them. Oh, we're going bigger this year.
Well, I don't even like to,
It's Anthony.
you know, when,
He's out there talking.
He's talking tomorrow.
when I clean out my
Yes, I always call.
There's a crap. I
you know,
swear.
dump that,
Yeah.
trying to
When I,
find it
yeah,
out.
there's something going, because when I went out,
Because I know
it's much
that's
longer
not
out in the hallway than it was through here, but yeah.
It felt cold when I came back.
Yeah, it's cold in here.
We're lucky.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not complaining.
Fried food.
You do.
There were several things breach inside the sewer line coagulated. And then the dust of the road. They ended up like this.
We're thick skinned.
So, a lot of the cities in the state. You can't.
Yeah.
I didn't put on.
Yeah.
I didn't
But we rarely use it.
They've got these neat little screws. Just put down and funnel.
It's my favorite thing. Wouldn't it be nice?
You were
I
hoping.
almost made them,
Yes, let's move on.
they should have heard it.
We'll get back going here. We got a lot more stuff to cover. And so, Mr. Dr. Bates, would you please, you're on the podium.
All right, well, thank you, Mayor, and good to see you all again. It's always a pleasure to be back. I want to give you a brief update on some of the activities that we've been doing in the watershed, and Rob has asked me to kind of focus on a new, something we've talked about for really a couple of years in terms of burning in the watershed, but give you a little bit more information on that, because it looks like we're at the point now where that might actually start happening. So, Jess, is this working? Yep, there we go. So just to start off, kind of introduce you to the Forest Stewards team. It's been a while since I've been here, and so I'm going to kind of give you some context and back up a little bit. But you know, the key members of our team include myself, and I really wanted to introduce Matt Vaughn right here. Matt was hired last summer. He's the Director of Stewardship and Forestry Education for Forest Steward, and it's been a real pleasure having him. His background, he most recently was at Clemson, where he got a master's in forest resources. He's done a lot of prescribed burning research. He worked on prescribed fire management with the Nature Conservancy, so glad to have him. We have Sunny Himes, who works with us as our naturalist. She's also an instructor of biology at Western, and then Jerry Miller, who does a lot of our water quality work in the waters. So just, again, a little bit of context, kind of set the stage. So again, the Waynesville watershed, which is a beautiful property, but it's typical of a lot of the Southern Appalachians in that it was heavily logged historically. Around the turn of the century, late 1800s, early 1900s is when the most major logging occurred in the area. That's a picture of the old Quinlan town, which is located where the reservoir is now. Railroads were built through up all the ridges in the watershed to extract the timber, and the amount of timber harvested, in that property, which is about 8,500 acres, the amount of timber harvested per year rivaled what the entire national forest in North Carolina, which is 1 million acres, harvested at the same time. And it was a very intensive, we call it timber mining. It really wasn't forestry at all. It was just timber mining kind of thing. And so it was just clear cutting, very unsustainable environmental practices where they would build splash dams, they'd dam up the creeks and they'd let them flood, and then they'd float logs in those creeks and they'd blow up the dams and let them all just run down the creek so they could get them out. So very exploitive logging. The town, as you all know, acquired the property in the 1920s, but then continued doing active forest management and did it in a much wiser way, partnered with the staff at the Coweta Hydrologic Lab, the Forest Service Hydrologic Lab in Otto, North Carolina. It was still had a lot of valuable timber. It was a viable economic revenue source for the town, and working through Coweta, they developed, you all developed a network of sustainable logging roads that could be utilized, no more railroad logging and managing. So there was some major harvesting that restarted in the 50s, kind of associated with the chestnut blight, and that continued into the 80s. Then in the 80s, when the current reservoir, when the dam was built, is when the town put it into a conservation easement. The mayor was part of that process, and we still stand. Mayor Foy was the one who spearheaded that with the town manager at the time, Lee Galloway. And so currently, most of the property is in a conservation easement. So looking at the map of the property, the blue area, for those who are familiar, is Rocky Branch, which is north of the reservoir. That actually is outside the true watershed that drains into the reservoir. So rain that falls in that blue area actually does not make it into the reservoir. The town owns that property outright. There is no easement on that property. This property, it's about 570 acres that the town owns. And at the time, they decided not to include that in the easement. The red is land that was acquired by the town with the help of EPA, Clean Water Management Trust Fund, that was required to get ownership of the entire watershed of all the land that actually drains into the reservoir. That the town needed to get that red area. That is not in our easement either. That's in a different kind of easement, very protected by a different kind of easement. So the easement that we manage is the rest of the property, which is the green. So the easement, which is held by two land trusts, Southern Appalachians Highlands Conservancy, based out of Asheville, and the Conservation Trust for North Carolina, which is based out of Durham. They co-hold the easement, and they're really responsible for making sure that the terms of the easement are upheld. So anything that we might want to do, or even that you might want to do within that property, we have to get prior permission from these two land trust groups, from their land stewardship staff, before we can do anything. And really the highlight of that easement, and why that easement was created, in addition to preventing that property from ever being sold or developed in any way, but the primary purpose of that property is to provide high quality drinking water for the town of Owensboro. And that is the purpose of the easement. So other things can be done. And if you read the easement, you can see that there are provisions that maintaining productive forests, protecting wildlife habitat, protecting viewsheds from the Blue Ridge Parkway, which surrounds it, protecting other conservation values. All those things can be done as well, but everything that is done has to be consistent with that first principle, which is it's not going to mess up the water. That's basically it. All about the water. So with that, we got involved from WCU and Forest Stewards at that time with the property. So once the easement was passed, then it was okay. How do we actually, or how can you steward that property to achieve the objective? So just very briefly to kind of go through that process. It was a very public thing. This was a very high profile issue back at the time, managing the watershed, because they were logging in Asheville's, or proposing to log in Asheville's watershed. They were logging in Mars Hill's watershed at the same time, and it's very controversial. So forest management and water quality protection were definitely in the news. And so we really reached out to make this a very public process when we started with stakeholder meetings, tours. We started bringing people up into the watershed. It was just a mystery. What's behind that dam? Or you could look down from the parkway, but you couldn't go up in there. So we started regular tours so people could get up in there and we could talk to them so they could see that property and see really that it is it's a beautiful property, but in many ways, like much of the rest of the Southern Appalachians, especially the national forest, is that it's been logged multiple times. It's got roads in it, had mines in it, tanneries, things like that. So definitely worthy of protection, but just to take some of that mystery out of it. And then we did a lot of investigation. We went up to the Northeast, Boston and New York, major cities that both have forested watersheds where they get their water supply from, and they have for hundreds of years or 100 years. So we went up and talked to those land managers, people who manage those watersheds, and talked to them about how do you manage for water quality when you're trying to provide water for millions and millions of people like they do in New York and Boston. Our local resource, Coweta, which is a U.S. Forest Service hydrologic research station that's world famous, they have a lot of information on water quality and forestry and water use. We talked to them. And then we just spent a lot of time in the watershed measuring things. And from all of that, we did investigation with that, going in there. This is just a map of some of the network of plots. We went in and put a whole network of plots in there to just characterize the forest. And so some of the things, after all that assessing was done, some of the things that we found that would inform how we might steward the forest going forward were that the forests in the watershed are generally healthy. There's no crisis then, there isn't a crisis now, but we did find that they contain less overall diversity than was historically present. And that was due to the uniform and massive timbering that was done about 100 years ago. That basically wiped the slate clean. And so all the forests came back together. And as a result of that, they aren't as diverse as they would have been historically. Some of the ways that that's represented is that much of the forest has been converted from multiple age stands where we had young trees, medium age trees, old trees, all kind of mixed together. Again, when you slick everything off all at once, it all comes back to the same age. So now everything is mature, but that was 100 years ago, but it's all the same age. And we see that a lot in the Southern Appalachians. We see a different balance of species than we would have had historically. So species that do well following disturbance, and these are native species like yellow poplar, things like that. There's a lot more of that in the watershed than there would be because there was such a big opening in there. Other species are coming in and starting to replace some species that we feel are very important. So in specifics, we have what we call mesic species. Examples are maples, birches, beech, sourwood. They grow very well in the shade and in the competition. They're coming into the understory and they're actually out competing and forcing out our oaks and our hickories and our pines, which is a major shift. And I don't have the slide because I don't want this to go longer than it's going to go anyway. But in terms of a watershed, one of the key things that we're just learning now about that replacement of oaks by maples is that maples are much higher users of water than oaks are. And at Coweta and at Bent Creek, the other Forest Service station, they're suggesting that those species use 17% more water than oaks. So if you have a watershed that is a water supply, and water is a value. I don't have to tell you that, but we need all the water we can get, even though it rains all the time around. But just for a water supply watershed to go from a oak hickory forest, which much of it is, to a mesic species forest, you're gonna have significant yields of water over time, less water over time. So it's fortuitous for us that returning it to its natural condition actually is better for water yield too. It's nice that those matched up. And then for those who've walked around there, mountain laurel is becoming increasingly dense, and rhododendron and mountain laurel, both of them. And when mountain laurel spreads and it's a very thick shrub, it completely shades out what's underneath it, and so we don't have much vegetation underneath. So these are just some of the examples of how the watershed forest as a whole is really not as diverse and how it's changed from what it was historically. So that kind of is setting the stage. Okay, so what do we do about that? So other things that we notice in the assessment, and again, not unique to this property, but the forest has been impacted by the introduction of non-native pests. So these are things like chestnut blight, balsam and hemlock woolly adelgias, things that everybody's heard of. There are more. other insect and disease, non-native insects and diseases that are coming in. Emerald ash borer. It seems like every day we get a new one. So those are definitely have impacted the forest. We have non-native invasive plants in some areas, and again, we have these outside the watershed. These are particularly a problem in some areas close to the Blue Ridge Parkway. Basically, these most of these are there because of humans brought them in, either on purpose or not on purpose, indirectly. So the parkway is one vector, so the parkway borders part of the watershed. So that's one source of non-native invasives. But the other is down near the reservoir, where around the reservoir itself, there's a lot of disturbance in building the reservoir. There's the old town sites where people planted things like periwinkle and things like that are non-native invasive. People brought in multiflora rose. So those are kind of the areas where we have some problems with non-native invasive plants. And so that then sets the stage for how are we going to steward this property, kind of that background. And so just to run through these just very briefly, what we've been doing since 2008, I would say, is we've been regularly monitoring that property. And so one of the things we monitor is the water quality. This is what Jerry Miller leads that effort. And we have a number of water quality monitoring stations scattered throughout the watershed, where Jerry's collecting all sorts of water quality data, automated, meaning that we're getting some things every 5 minutes, and we've had to have that year. So that allows us to get a baseline of the water quality condition in the property. And I'm not presenting any results of his here. You've seen them before, but there are no issues with water quality. In fact, that water is so clean, it's almost too hard for him to measure things, because all of his chemical measurements require that the water carry a current from an anode to a cathode, and so you have to have some sort of salt or ions in that water to carry that current. The water is so clean in many places that you can't even get it to carry a current. But you can't measure things. We're measuring forest condition. As I said, we have these permanent plots that we've established, where we go back in every 10 years or so and we remeasure those plots to see how the forest is changing over time. We monitor and treat native invasive plants. That's a major activity that we do every year. And so we map them and we keep treating those. And then in terms of forest stewardship, we proactively maintain and create a healthy and diverse forest. And that's kind of a buzzword or something. I ask my students, okay, great, how do you define that? What does that mean? But a healthy, first, why we do that? Well, there's all sorts of information and data that shows a healthy and a diverse forest is the best known land cover for protecting water quality. That's just an axiom that we know. And what we want to do by creating a healthy and diverse forest is we want to maintain a watershed forest that is resistant and resilient to the negative stressors that are coming in, whether it be things like climate change, air pollution, non-native invasive plants, new diseases. The more diversity we have across that forest, the more chance we have that individual species are going to be able to withstand some of those stressors. The forest as a whole will be able to respond to it and be resilient from it. So we don't have any magic bullet that allows us to protect forests from some of these things coming in, like emerald ash borer and things like that, which just come in and they're non-native and we have no defense for them, or there's no way we could treat every tree in the watershed. So it would be nice if we could come up with some of those defenses, and people are working on those, and who knows what the future holds. But for now, we just have to have the most diverse, healthy forest that we can. So conceptually, how we get there, this is my schematic. On the left of that big bracket, If you can see it, and this is an example for one of the more common forest stand types we have, which is the montane oak hickory forest stand type. On the left of that bracket, that kind of represents historically the conditions we had for that one stand type. So maybe 300 years ago, we had the same stand type, but we had some young versions of that. We had some medium-aged versions of that. We had some that were mostly chestnut oak. We had some that were mostly northern red oak. So there's a lot of diversity in the montane oak hickory forest. And historically, we had within that we had little pockets that were very different. We came in 100 years ago and we slicked it all off. And so now we have montane oak hickory forest, but on the right side of that bracket, it's all pretty uniform. We don't have that diversity that we had before. But that's our starting point. So then those arrows represent what our approach is to go into that forest type and treat certain areas differently so that we can tweak them so that they will develop differently in the future. And so we might not get back to all the diversity that we had 150, 200 years ago, but we can increase the diversity above what it would be if we, because it's all very similar now. So what are some of the treatments? The biggest one is do nothing. So we're not suggesting that we need to treat every acre. In fact, we don't treat a lot of acres, but let stand develop naturally, do nothing. That's our most common treatment. In other areas, we'll do pre-commercial treatments, treating some species, with herbicides or otherwise to take them out so that the species that we want can grow and develop in that stand and increase diversity. We do some thinning to affect forest structure and to promote the development of large trees. Regeneration treatments so we can create new age classes. As I said, this is a very mature forest. We have a lot of stands that are 100 years old. We don't have young stands, and so we need stands coming up in the pipeline to replace those older stands. And then this last one, which is what Rob has asked me kind of to focus on, is to introduce prescribed burning into the watershed so that we can enhance fire-adapted species and also manage some of the fuel. So just to touch on that, very excited that Rob, I believe you signed the agreement with the North Carolina Forest Service. So the North Carolina Forest Service has been interested in this property and working with us for a long time. We now have a signed agreement. They will implement any burns in the watershed at no cost to the town, and we will work with them to develop that. But just a little bit of background why we're doing that. Just want to emphasize that fire was a very key disturbance that shaped Southern Appalachian forests. You probably have been reading that. There's been a lot of articles recently in the press about burning and how it really is a natural part of our forest ecosystems. And we have a lot of evidence to back that up. This is just a slide. There are researchers who actually can age when fires occurred, and they do that by going out in the stands. And that picture of that stump, that cross section, is a pine tree, and you can actually see individual fire scars, and you know that you can age a tree by counting its rings. And so they can go back in time and see exactly what year that fire occurred, and in some cases, based on where that scar was in the ring, they can tell what season that fire occurred. And they have ways of pouring live trees or looking at live trees, and then there's dead trees that are laying on the ground that can take that record back earlier, because if those trees, the dead tree might have overlapped with the live tree 20 years or so, and they can match up the rings, and so they can carry that record back. So we have very detailed fire records in this case that go back to the early 1700s for every year, and these data show that historically, fires occurred about twice per decade. That was the natural fire return interval, if you will, for much of the Southern Appalachians. And that happened until the 1930s, and I have the smoke of the bear, because that is when humans stepped in and decided that fire was bad for our forest, and the U.S. Forest Service was created largely with the intention of stopping wildfires, starting out west, but here as well. So human suppression of wildfires started in the 30s, and that's created some of the issues that we have today. So just what were the forests like when we had that fire regime? Well, we had fires that occurred, every 2 to 5 years. They occurred primarily in the dormant season. So that's when things are dry. That's when things are going to burn. When we have dry leaves on the ground, that's when things burn. Most of the sites that burned were on drier areas, so south-facing slopes, ridges. And most of these fires were very low to moderate intensity. When you burn that frequently, you don't get a fuel buildup. So these were just ground fires for the most part that would creep through the forest. And these fires created a mosaic of open woodlands in areas that burned frequently, but there were some areas that did not burn, coves, north-facing slopes, high elevation, spruce fir kinds of things. Those were generally too wet. And so there was no one out there fighting the fires. They just would go out when they got to the places. The fuels were too wet. So we definitely had areas on the landscape that did not burn, and those would develop into closed canopy forest, cove forest, and things like that. But then most of the rest of the landscape would be a more open woodland condition. And in those open woodlands, as you would expect, since fire was so frequent, we had species that were fire adapted or fire tolerant. That's the only reason that they would exist there. And so what are those? Well, fire adapted species are those that either can just tolerate fire. Fire can try to burn them, but they can survive, or they can be affected by the fire, but they respond very vigorously to that fire. And so if we look at the fire adapted species, probably the most fire adapted species that we have are the various yellow pines that exist in this area: pitch pine, table mountain pine, shortleaf pine. Very well adapted to fire. They have a thick insulating bark that you can burn quite hot around it, and that bark will protect the cambium, the inner living layer inside bark, and it will survive very hot fires. And they also have serotinous cones, which are a cone that the fire will degrade the wax in the cone. So after that fire goes through, then that cone will start to open up and release seeds. So these cones are adapted to drop their seeds after a fire has gone through when the conditions are right for their germination. The other big group is the oaks. And oaks also, some oaks in particular, have thick insulating bark, but they're not as resistant to wounding as yellow pines are. So these are examples of scarring. That one in the middle is actually a fire scar on my property, I might add, of an oak. But what oaks can do that a lot of other hardwoods cannot do is they can seal off that wound. And so if you look at the edge of those wounds and that stump on the far right, you'll see that what we call callus tissue, which is kind of like a scab for a plant. And as soon as there's a wound, it seals that off, and so rot and fungus don't spread. So then another thing about oaks is that they're very good at resprouting, especially smaller, younger oak saplings and seedlings. Very vigorous resprouting. So if you have a fire come through and kill the top of the tree, they'll resprout better than most other hardwoods, and that's because they have what we call hypogeo buds, which means the buds that sprout are actually below the whereas some things will sprout above ground. The rot will develop in that stump, it will fall off. These shoots develop below ground. And oaks are also known for the fact that they spend their early years investing a lot of energy into root growth. So the first 5 or 10 years of an oak's life, it won't put much energy at all into growing that stem up in the ground. It will put a lot of energy into developing its root system. And then when it gets a fire and it gets what we call top kill, and it's got that root system, the good hypogeo buds, and so a very vigorous regeneration. So how have our forests changed since fire suppression? So we've lost, in some areas, we've just lost species that need fire as part of their life cycle. So table mountain pine is an example, mountain golden heather. These are species that really need fire as part of their life cycle. So if we suppress fires, we've lost those. We've lost this woodland condition, this open condition, not quite a savanna, but not a closed forest where we have a herbaceous understory. We've had an expansion of ericaceous shrubs, which are heaths, which are mountain laurel and rhododendron are the ones we think about. There are many more than that. So without fire, they just expand across the landscape. And then we have fuel buildup from not having fires. And And then we see this, and this is what I was talking about. The process is known as mesification, but it's where the more mesic species are replacing the oak species. And in this graph, if you look on the left, the top graph is from the watershed, and that's overstory. That's the tall trees. And if you look at the data, most of the big trees in that stand are oaks. But if you look at the regeneration, what's coming in underneath, we don't have any oak regeneration coming in. We have maples and these mesic species, silver bell, things like that coming in. So we're seeing that process. Fire delayed that process from happening, but now we're seeing it with fire suppression. And then we have 2016. So hasn't happened since, but who knows when it will happen again. But the fire behavior and the fire intensity from our wildfires was much different than what we had before that, just because of this massive fuel buildup. So with that, and this is, what we're trying to do is mitigate some of those issues and restore some of these forests by introducing fire. And on the left is I have that list of how the forest is less diverse than it used to be that I presented earlier. That map is showing in orange areas that we have mapped that we believe were fire adapted communities would have existed. Those are south-facing slopes, ridges, things where fire adapted occurred. So it is our hope that working with the North Carolina Forest Service, that we can initiate a prescribed burn program in the watershed to mitigate some of those changes, bring back some of that diversity. And I will say, we're just in discussions at this point, but very excited about the potential opportunity to use that as a fire training resource for North Carolina Forest Service personnel, but also WCU fire students and Hayward Community College fire students. Both of our schools and programs have student fire crews, and this would be a great opportunity if the North Carolina Forest Service would work with us to have them help initiate some burning in the watershed. So very excited with that. Sorry if I took a little too long, but I want to thank you and let me know if you had any questions.
We appreciate you. Chuck's new, and Anthony, I don't know if you heard him, give a presentation before.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
we asked all
We
the
actually-
fire questions.
Okay, all right.
We actually went up to the watershed last time and took
Okay.
a tour. It was very nice.
But I think goes into a component of our sustainability.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea when some of these burns might occur?
We're still working on that. It could be sooner than we think, like next month. We did, as you know, and those of you who were at the tour where we first started talking about this, the easement holders were on that tour as well, and this has been approved. So SCHC and CTNC, both the easement holders have approved and are very supportive of burning in the watershed. So the only thing holding us back at this point is just the logistics of where that burn might be. And then, as anything with prescribed burning, it's all the stars have to align, the weather and everything else is in place. So
We'll certainly give plenty of notice through our different systems. Where the fire is, why it's there. Our own fire departments will be involved, so this you won't wake up one morning and there's a forest fire.
yeah, Matt Hooper, the North Carolina Hayward County Forest Ranger, he works very closely with all the VFDs and the city fire departments and things like that. So yeah, definitely anybody in the fire world.
And you think going forward that this would be kind of a regular occurrence, right?
Right. The thing is, it's not a one and done. If you're gonna try to restore conditions to resemble what they might have been a while ago, you can't just go in and burn one time and expect that to happen. So what we need to do is try to reestablish that fire regime, which is that frequency of burning. So if we could burn every 5 to 10 years, same area kind of. It would be nice to develop these burn units, as we call them, where we have containment lines well defined using existing roads and streams like that. Start burning them so we can start treating some of the buildup of fuels that exist there now, get the fuels under control, but then get them to the point where it'd be quite you know, the fire behavior that exists is well understood by the fire managers and be a pretty, I don't want to say simple, but relatively simple thing to go in. Okay, we've got this unit defined. Let's go ahead and just, it's time to reburn it. Go ahead and run.
Last question. Have you read the book, The Hidden Life of Trees?
My dentist has read that, who did this. And so I feel like I've read it because he had to talk about something.
The reason I ask is I would highly encourage anybody that's interested in not only our forests, but forests in general to read that book. It's really just fascinating that did you all know that trees talk to one another? And it's just fantastic. So
Trees talk to one another, and broccoli has a central nervous system.
Yeah, I from talking to my dentist, if you read that book and you like to walk in the woods, prepare to slow down because you won't be walking very fast. You're spending all your time every tree.
We would love to do another tour.
Yeah, Chuck mentioned that. And I don't know if you guys were talking about the same tour.
The Environmental Sustainability Board is trying to get one done next month.
Oh, fantastic.
I told them, get out there before the rattlesnake.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
We've never had it.
I know.
We're working on it properly also.
I would like to see it before the burn and after the burn.
Yeah, but anytime. We're always happy to have you all out there. I never remember what your rules are for how many of you we can have at once. The more the merrier.
We have some new press members that's the, I think, as well.
Yeah, he would definitely be. So check it out.
Great. One other question. You displayed a slide that had the easements located, and there was one area, I think in blue, that that the town owns, but it's not in the easement. Do you recall why that occurred?
570 acres.
It's not in the
That
watershed.
doesn't feed into the watershed that we
It's
own.
not in the watershed proper. So it wouldn't have, no matter what happened to that, technically it wouldn't affect water quality in the reservoir. Gary, I don't want to answer. I remember Gavin was pretty adamant at that time that he wanted to hold that out for various reasons. I don't know if you want to.
That is part of that, what's called Forever Wild.
That's the red, is the Forever Wild.
Yeah, Forever Wild. Referred that to.
Forever Wild is the red, and
That's
then
the
the no
red.
easement is 570 acres.
And that's just fee simple. I mean, technically the town could sell that. I mean,
Well, I think that
you just own it.
Gavin had the thought that at some point you could build some walking trails that weren't so tied to the health of the watershed. And the issue he had was there's not a clean road from a passable road into the property. There's not a good way to get into it. But it was a place where you could have public walking trails without disturbing the health of the watershed itself, because the water doesn't go into the watershed.
Because we have such great town clerk, I will research and find those minutes. Read what Gavin did. There might be some nuggets of wisdom there.
You call Gavin.
Yeah.
He texted us this morning, so I know he's around.
Yeah, he could probably give you the exact date too. Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate, you taking care of our watershed. That's the town of Waynesville's jewel up there. It's our watershed. We're proud of.
We feel really
water in the country.
Yeah, I'll make this little comment that we've lost our city attorney, but we had a law firm show up, I guess about a month ago, that wanted us to join a national lawsuit about the appearance of microplastics in drinking water. It's going to kill everybody, all 4 billion of us. And wanted us to join. They were actually on the agenda. And I called Kyle up at the water treatment plant. I said, do you test for this? And he said, yeah, 4 times a year. He says, we have never discovered any microplastics in our drinking water. And the law firm said this is the first community in the nation that they have approached that had no microplastics in their drinking water.
We also don't have any forever chemicals.
Yeah. So I think that maybe that's what we ought to put on our sign. No microchemicals.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's something to be proud of for the many boards that have held sway over that watershed.
Well, thank you all again.
Well, the Cape Fear River's
Yeah, well,
just
thank you for
flooding with
letting us
microplastics.
present and update you, and I'll follow up with an interview about tours in the watershed.
Sign me up.
Yeah. That's what he was putting up on. Thank you. Yeah.
We can give you his contact information. He's a professor with.
Okay, we'll move on here to presentation of awards to the 23 Christmas parade winners. Ava?
You have been so patient. So
I
patient.
think our award winners were done with the civics lesson, so.
You said
We told
already run your awards winner off.
So, actually, Linda Chambers is our president.
Okay,
I'm not, I am the past president.
okay.
But, you know, it's kind of like Hotel California. You know, you can check out, but you can never leave.
Congratulations on the grant you got down in Kenton down there, you know, to finish their all abilities playground down there.
Yeah, we were talking about that at Kiwanis today, and I said, party at my house the day that thing opens.
That was
Can't
awesome.
have alcohol at the park. It's been a long road, it's been a long road, but it's very exciting, and it was
Yeah.
great to get the last push from Debbie Wilson.
Well deserved there.
Yeah, it was great. So it is Celebration Tuesday, so we are here to celebrate the awards, the float winners for the Christmas parade, and we have some cheers for you to look at here.
We just saw them.
There we go. So our Kiwanis volunteers, we work closely with Beth, and who just sits around at that time and eats bombs from the back of her desk, and that's about it. But yeah, so it's great fun, and we coordinate the floats with Beth, and we also the judges. There's our judges. Marty Pipin, our Twanning, was the lead judge, and we brought in 2 newbies to the community. Devin Bush, who's the public store manager, and Danielle Caselli. She's a new resident here in Haywood County. She's had property here for a while. She's just moved here last week full time. So we have Woodland Baptist Church was the winner. They were very excited to hear that, and we're going to go back to the church and celebrate with them. And then we have Skateway, which was number 2, and then we had Caldwell, excavating, rock yard, on and on and on. You know, they do everything. So it was great participation. I don't think we had enough fire trucks in the parade this year. So you guys,
We'll have 2 more next year.
yeah. So
To help people on their horns.
it's amazing. Towing companies too. So congratulations, Beth, for your hard efforts. We enjoy working with you. And to the town of Waynesville, it's a great parade and such a wonderful event and to see everything. We're really glad. So I said it's Celebration Tuesday, so we celebrate the award winners 4 months ago. Did their thing, and they're already talking about their floats for next year. But we have something else to share with you this evening, another reason to celebrate. And Linda's got updated infographics. We received word that Kiwanis
did receive an $18,000 grant from the Mid and Phil Medford Endowment for the improvement of East Street Park, and we're on this, the East Street Park collaboration.
Yeah.
And so we're counting on a lot of volunteers and the position. That park really needs some great attention. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
And since Kiwanis has our storage building there, granted by the town, we're there a lot. So we've seen things over time. And since the initial article the Mountaineer did in the paper, when we're over there, a lot of neighbors just stop by and chat, and they were bringing pictures from years ago. So we're learning a lot of history. We're estimating the whole amount to do what we want to see be done. It's going to be around $73,000. A lot of that in kind as well. And today, not today, but just a couple weeks ago, Adam Hamilton from WNC Pressure Washing, Staining, all that, came over to the park, met with us, and he has committed to $4,300 worth of services. He's going to do power washing of all of the facilities. I know Michael from Park and Rec really unhappy about that because he loves to power wash. But they're going to do it with their staff, and he's donating all the paint and stain for the buildings as well, and is going to provide technical assistance and advisement for our volunteers for the staining and painting. We have a meeting we're coordinating in April with Boy Scout folks, and we're going to be back at the cabin. We'll make sure you're invited. I looked for a picture of you in there, but I didn't see one. So
There's a picture of it.
yeah, I'm sure there is.
Black eye.
Yeah.
I won.
I was looking for the blood stain.
Black eye.
I won.
Right.
Oh, did you win? The other guy had a black eye.
So anyway, just wanted to let you know that we did get word we got the grant. It's a seed grant, and we're looking for more funds and resources.
That's great. That's great. Because I went over there this past weekend and just drove through it, you know, and it's a beautiful little park.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful little park.
Yeah, it needs some attention. It'll be even better. And so being so close to downtown, there's such great opportunities.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's been a short night for you guys so far. I know you have more on your agenda, so we'll let you go. Thank you for the opportunity.
And we want to thank, you know, the Kiwanis for everything that you guys do for our recreation department. I know Luke back there definitely appreciates all the help we get, you know, from, you know, improving our parks. So thank you all so much.
He's on speed dial.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Town Manager. Move on.
Let's do it.
Before we get to pass up public hearing,
Yep.
move on, approve the award. Approve the award of contract to Dan Grady Company in the amount of $163,500 for Richmond Creek Greenway Trail construction at the old shoe offer property. Luke, you're up. You're up, Luke.
Wake him up.
Yeah,
Wake
we
up,
skipped
Luke.
over. Sharon, she had a presentation on number 5.
Oh, yes,
Let's try number
yes.
5.
Oh, we skipped number 5.
We
I am
can.
so
This is
sorry.
fantastic. This one's a great one.
Y'all been waiting on this. haven't
I've been
you?
waiting for this.
I am so sorry.
It's my
And we'll
fault.
make
went
sure
over
the
the
Mountaineer gets
Public
these
hearing
slides.
thing here.
I mean, I don't really have a presentation. I don't know what y'all had received in your packets there. Did you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you got that right now. So I'm just here to bring an update with our top 11, although it's really 10. And I have been in touch with probably 9 of these folks, starting with number 2. They're on the list. Mr. Welch, he has been in several times over the past couple weeks and has been making payments.
Yeah.
So he does have a statement of what he still owes. He left with that, I guess, probably early today. So so I think he's doing a lot better.
Does the folks seem
that's going
cooperative to you when you ask them about, you know,
Yes,
please
I'm-
start making payments.
Yes, and like I said, he came in 3 times.
Yeah.
Just in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So, he understands, that he still needs to work on, let's say, I think it's year 2022.
Yeah.
So he's really looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Mr. Bergen, I have not, Virgin. I've had a hard time getting a hold of him, so the phone number that we have on file is usually busy. But the last time we received a payment from him, we did take out a door hanger to him, so I'm going to be doing that again tomorrow. That seemed to work the last time. There's the family last name is Setzer. I have not heard from them. I've called them several times, even sent out the door hanger. So that's somebody that I'm going to have to do a little more work on. Find out what their plan is. The number 5 and number 6, those are both, I contacted Sebastian Cochran up there at Ford County, and those are both in, I guess you could say, pre-foreclosure process with one of the attorneys down in Silva. Then there is Brittany Medford. She's been making payments. I sent her monthly emails to remind her. I sent out another one today, and so I'll be contacting her again tomorrow. She usually she'll tell me that she'll be in a week, and she usually does come in. But I think that that's one of the situations where it's rent, and we're going to probably go towards rent garnishments on that property. There's her name is Paula Matthews. I'm sending her a payment plan. She did request that, so I am going to send her a payment plan. And I'll just have to try to work very closely with her, talking with her. And she's actually very accessible. I can call her and talk with her, but she's going to need to commit to a payment plan. Miss Spencer was in today. She made some payments. She also made some payments online yesterday. So I'm going to follow up with her on a payment plan just to keep those payments coming in. Mr. Bryant, I have not heard from. I'm surprised because usually he usually will contact me, but I have not heard from him in probably 3 months. So I'm just going to have to keep on trying to locate him and see what we can do. And that's going to need to be a payment plan.
Do you need any direction from the board, any authorization from the board?
I have a payment plan that was sent to me from Canton, from the tax collector down in Canton. So I have been using that over the past year. And I mean, if y'all need me to send that to you or to Martha Bradley.
We were just curious as to whether you wanted the town's blessing, if you will, to garnish or to patch or to use any of the other.
Yes, and I know
tools
we've talked about it
disposal.
before, but I think, we are again a year later, and I would say yes, just I'm asking for your approval to continue to work towards rent garnishments.
Thing is that
You have
If-
our blessing.
you have our blessing. Yeah. If they're making payments, it's gotta be at least enough to pay them so until next, that it'll be paid off so they can do
Right.
the same thing the
And that
next year.
payment plan that I use starts with 50% down.
Okay.
It just has to be that way, or they're not gonna get caught up.
Right.
So that is how that payment plan is stated, that it's 50% down. And then from there, I give them so many months and I break it down for them. I sent 2 out already to some of these folks, and I'm working towards where they're going to have 5 months, 50% and then 5 months so that they're caught up by the end of August.
Because that's when taxes start coming out again.
Right. And let's see, the last one is Miss Brooks. And she did make some payments, but what I'm going to pursue a payment plan with her on her commercial property down there at 154 Hemlock Street. There is a restaurant that is operating. And, that may actually be, rent garnishments. Because, otherwise she's never gonna get caught up. It's not gonna pursue some garnishments. It's hard with folks that are self-employed because, I can't really go to an employer for a wage garnishment. And if they're retired, Social Security or disability, they garnish that.
Fortunately, I think the top two actually have rental properties.
Yes, and so like I said, he's been, these past couple of weeks, very pleasant. And I think we're going to see a difference there. As yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
I
It
think
sounds
they all
like
want
you're
to
doing-
do this the right thing.
Sounds like you're doing a good job. At our retreat last year, we gave you the authority to proceed with all measures.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that still is good. The other good thing is I think we make 10.25% a year. I think that's what it works out to with the interest that's due.
Yeah. Yeah, you've already got our blessings.
Yeah,
to
I
do
mean,
whatever,
I find that if I can talk to them, things happen. That's why I'm a little concerned with a couple of these folks, but that are hard to get a hold of.
I think Mr. Bryant may live with his daughter now.
Okay.
Her name is Tina.
All right.
I appreciate you putting this together.
Okay.
It makes it's very nice when you can see it. As a
Right.
whole.
And we've had a few on that little pie chart there. We've had someone in the other range that's paid. So it's just I just have to keep up with them, calling and sending out notices.
You have a very tough job, and you're very good at it. Thank you.
Thank you. You're
All
doing
right,
a great
thank you.
job.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. Now we move down to. I'm getting tired.
Yeah.
Now we move down to number 7. Luke, he's already up, isn't he?
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
I guess you heard the guy speak about the tennis court, right?
Yes.
Is that probably on your budget list?
Yes.
It has been.
It has been.
Has been. Need to be reconstructed from the down low.
Yeah.
It's not a resurface, it's a redo.
Yeah. Get a more interim fix. However, a more deeper job would be required. We just don't know what that price would be.
What is the resurfacing? Like 15,000?
44,000 from the quote.
Really?
Yep. Thermal Metal Support Services was who I contacted. I could not get quote one fence company to respond. Once they get into the paving season, they won't even respond. Yeah. So that's the Thermal Metal was very responsive. Nick Giles came up and gave us that quote. That's more interesting.
I'm used to resurfacing being like 10 to 15,000 and rebuilds being 40 to 50. So that seems.
I think relocation for construction. A lot of moisture underneath.
Okay, sorry.
All right. Now you can go. Sorry about that.
So as part of the ongoing project, the state of North Carolina, across the bridge at the new property, we sent an invitation out to bid, using ARP funds for this Greenway Trail paving project. We did an invitation to bid on February 22nd to get ahead of the paving season. We received 4 bids, lowest being 163,500 and the highest being 288,000. So we did our due diligence on the lowest bid. Bell Engineering is the firm that has been contracted to proceed this. They oversaw the project on the bridge too. They checked references. They checked out. I believe you have a letter of recommendation to award contracts to them. If you so choose, we would like to move forward with awarding the contract to Dan Grady Company in this amount. The bid They're ready to get started as soon as possible. We have the contract ready to go.
As soon as possible.
I'll make a motion to approve the award contract to Dan Grady Company in the amount of $163,500 for the Richland Greenway Trail construction at the old Schulhofer property.
Second.
A second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? To like sign? Get them started, so.
We will. Any other questions you have?
You have any other questions for?
Are you happy to answer?
Thank you. You're doing a great job. I've been
Yes.
driving through the parking lot down there and it's just, I mean, you got it's early morning. I mean, it's just wide open down there.
It's getting busier outside with soccer.
You know,
I would like to give a shout out to my staff. Michael Nolan, outside crew, very, very good. And inside, lot of cards to everybody. We just keep me going.
I've heard some very positive comments.
thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Just FYI, I was tasked with, getting the lands.
Oh, yeah, about the name of the park.
And she flat out told me no.
Okay.
And I didn't take it as an answer.
Yeah.
So I'm still working on her.
Okay.
And, I feel confident that I will eventually bear that.
Okay.
And, so-
She's very resilient. I don't
Oh,
know.
well, she is stubborn.
Yeah.
And, so I'm working on it.
If anybody can do it, you can.
All right,
Well, we're gonna leave that enough to you. Mayor.
all right, got it.
Okay, keep us posted.
All right.
All right. Move on to number 8, approve a quote employment survey service from the University of North Carolina School of Government Workplace. H.
How are y'all tonight?
Yes.
Sorry you had to wait.
That's okay.
Let's get a nice Julia bedtime. We're getting past Julia.
Sad but true.
It's definitely past dinner time, I can tell you that.
Pepper's getting cold. Jesse, I believe I have a. Thank y'all for present this bill tonight. Back in February, I went to Winston-Salem for some training and I did some press work with Lisa Newport Davis through this government. And she is part of the local workforce initiatives program there. And she did a great job talking about employee surveys and great workplaces in local government. And it was kind of serendipitous that Dawn had asked me at the board retreat to do some research on employee satisfaction surveys. That's what we're going to talk about very briefly tonight. John Fichter requested that the HR department research my option employee satisfaction survey. I reached out to Dr. Davis and talked to her about what they could do for us, what they could do for the town of Waynesville, and also what they have done for other counties and municipalities in North Carolina. It turns out they've worked with over 16,000 employees in the 20 years that they've been doing this. They're quite professional. They're learned. They understand what they're doing. They understand what makes a great local government workplace. I even spoke to Christy Fox, the HR director for Haywood County, and they're going to be participating in the same survey in July. Just putting that out there too. Some of the benefits of creating what we call a high voice workplace that comes through these types of surveys is we can reduce employee turnover significantly. And if you guys have ever heard me talk about turnover, turnover equals money, right? And so it typically costs 1.5 to 2 times the annual salary of an employee to replace them.
Yeah.
You want to hold on to your folks, and this will help us. Another benefit is that it informs effective personnel policy. We want to make good rules that people will follow, right?
Yeah.
But we can't do that if we don't hear from our employees and have a good way to do it. This will help us. So we have a funding source. Missy and I work together on this. We have $10,000 in professional services, I believe, that we can utilize. However, if we don't act on it in this fiscal year, those funds will not be available. Just putting that out there too, folks. Some frequently asked questions about local government. They were established in 2004. Their goal is to help local government create great work, which I think is what we want to do. I think we already have a great workplace, but there's always room for improvement, right? They've used surveys, interviews, focus groups, analysis of HR data to help over 35 government partners. This survey will help give our employees a voice and help us create good policies that empower employees and honor psychological contracts in the workplace. This is something that I've been learning about recently, is these psychological contracts, where you really do need to say what you're going to do. You need to do what you say you are going to do every time. And also, there are certain expectations that staff have. Sometimes those are expectations because of tradition, right? Traditionally, we get a COLA every year, right? Well, if for some reason we don't get one, that is breaking a psychological contract. So that's just a good example. Also, this survey can help us manage performance strategy. It's anonymous, and it ensures more accurate employee feedback than me doing an in-house survey. Some other frequently asked questions. When can we get started? Well, when I talked to Dr. Davis, she said we could probably get started at the beginning of May, if you guys approve tonight. We need about 3 weeks to promote the survey before the launch. We can also survey all of our full-time and our part-time staff for this amount. UNC would train our department heads. That's very important because staff are going to be coming to them for answers. So they would come and do that for us. They would send out personalized invitations to all the staff participants. They would track the non-respondents. They would conduct follow-up analysis. We can customize the survey and add questions that we want to hear the employees, hear about from the employees. We would receive weekly updates on response rates per department, which I think is really unique. We're going to be able to see which departments are responding and be able to customize per department our action plans. They would send us visualizations of survey results, including specific department summaries. We can compare our results with other organizations to create baselines. They would actually come here from Chapel Hill and deliver the results at a board meeting if you all wanted them to. Yeah, I think that's cool too. And so it would allow us to understand our overall workplace climate, including areas for improvement. That's all I have. Do y'all have any questions that I've not covered?
I think it's a great idea.
Fantastic.
I just gotta
It's
say,
a no-brainer.
I'll make the motion, John.
I love it.
This is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I like that you took the ball and ran with it very quickly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I love it. Fantastic.
Excellent.
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward tonight.
Okay, we got a motion?
Second.
Second.
Chuck did a second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Vote, show like sign. Get them started.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for your hard work.
No problem. My pleasure.
Thank you, Missy, for coming up with the money. Okay, move on to 9. They got me down for this, but this is actually our town manager about our water shortage response plan that we have displayed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Every so often, the state asks that we renew our formal water resource, our shortage response plan. And several of you remember when we actually had to use the water resource plan in 2016. That was kind of the year that you inaugurated me into this town. I'm not going to go over the full plan. I know many of you will remember it as I go through it. It has 5 levels of water shortage response. The first and the first is a 5% voluntary 5% reduction. The second is a 10% reduction that can have some stingers on it. The third is a mandatory reduction, where citizens must continue the action of the previous stages. And then we have the 25% reduction, and then the final is actual water rationing. I've actually had to do water rationing when I was with the city of Statesville. So to remind you of how this worked, when we did this in 2016, we know to go to level 1 when our reservoir level drops 6 feet below full pond, and of course that's where the overflow is. Level 2 is when it drops 11 feet from full pond. Level 3, 16 feet from full pond. Level 4, 26 feet. And then level 5 is the most critical, and that's where we have to change from the secondary intake to the primary intake. And we came, within about 9 feet of that in 2016. So
I remember.
yeah. For those of us that were there, it got really dicey. And as you remember, Canton and Clyde and the others were actually rationing water at that point. So your staff recommends that you renew your water resource response plan, your water shortage response plan.
Every 5 years. So I'll ask for a motion.
It's in the form of a resolution.
For the resolution.
I move we approve the resolution.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Quickly. Gotta get Julia to bed. I'm sorry, Julia. Pick it up. I love the picture.
We need to wake Elizabeth up.
I love that. Yeah. Julia's my pickup.
Is it Wednesday yet?
Yeah. I love it.
It's getting close.
It's getting close.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me bring this to you. Our zoning board of adjustments suffered the loss of personnel. Rob Herman passed away quite suddenly. And then also we had someone appointed the zoning board of adjustment,
Who then
ended up
withdrawing. We had appointed, sworn him in. The day of the meeting last month, he resigned. So that said, we are short some people, and we had to cancel last month's meeting, and we have a full agenda coming up in April. So I was wondering, given the 2 applicants that you have in your packet, Mr. John Mason and Samuel Hyde, I understand that people know them and are familiar with them. If we could expedite that appointment for tonight so that we can get them trained and sworn in to be part of the zoning board this coming month.
I'll make a motion to appoint John Mason and Sam Hyde to the zoning board of adjustments.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you so much.
These are 2 good folks right here that would be excellent for your planning board. I mean, I know you're putting them on the board of adjustment, but they're awesome people. I know for a fact.
And they're both residents of the town.
Yep. And they are residents. Thank you, AT. You stay in the play. Move right along.
Mr. Mayor, I think I have the next agenda item that we added.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll try to be brief, but I just wanted to thank the board for appointing or for allowing us to proceed with an environmental sustainability board last year. And I also want to thank the members who wrote the grant that we just received, and Karam has paid for her salary by doing that. We're also partnering with the environmental action community with this grant. But it's fairly momentous. The grant is worth up to $750,000, $750,000. It will include technical expertise from the Department of Energy for clean energy planning and for development of community resilience microgrids. And it also includes up to $50,000 to help implement. So we'll be talking with them and finding out more things. The name of the plan is Greening the Grid in Southern Appalachia. And it's part of the Department of Energy's Communities LEAP program, which is Local Energy Action Plan. The census tract that enabled us to get this grant is in the south part of town, similar to the place where we get the CDBG grant. This is the second round of this LEAP funding. We are the only community of 54 nationwide in North Carolina to get this grant. Wow. So they did really good. And again, the CARM worked on several members of our Environmental Sustainability Board. Great technical expertise to help with that. And going forward, it's really interesting that with the federal funding that's coming down, there's a President Biden issued an order directing that 40% of all federal climate and clean energy investments go to disadvantaged communities. It's called Justice 40 is what it's called. We have two of those communities in Waynesville. It's basically from here north. Yeah. The communities are low income. Between 16 and 18% of the residents did not complete high school. And one of the communities, the one on that side, has a high rate of heart disease. So these are disadvantaged communities, which will help us with more federal funding down the line. We're investigating USDA loans for solar installations, battery storage. North Carolina's rolling out a multi-million-dollar Solar for All program. They've applied for money, hundreds of millions of dollars from the federal government, and are hopeful of getting it. And I want to thank you all for excusing my absence last week. I went to the 2024 electrification conference. John went to the one in 2022. But it's actually very exciting. I mean, there were folks there from all across the nation. I mean, it's nonprofits, governments, industry, power companies, and we are in the start of a revolution, really, to electrify this country. I mean, the folks from Amazon were there. They're electrifying their complete fleet. Enterprise people are doing it. Uber is working on it. New York City has a carbon tax on their buildings. They're either going to upfit their buildings for heat pumps and that sort of thing, or they'll be paying a tax. I'm not suggesting we do that. We can, but went to the Southwest Commission meeting last night. An economic development fellow was there talking about the tens of thousands of jobs that are coming to North Carolina, have already come to North Carolina, in the auto manufacturing, the battery storage, solar, all that sort of thing. I mean, and all this is being driven by it's the most significant legislation this country has ever seen to deal with clean energy. That sort of thing. So I'm about done. No. We still have a lot to do in Waynesville, but the ESB is working really hard. They divided three working groups, one on energy and energy production, the other on electric transportation, and then the other on urban ecology. And they're all, you're going to be hearing a lot from them. They're doing a great job. But we have a lot to do, but Waynesville's going to benefit from this. I really, truly believe, especially low and middle income folks. And the other thing is sustainability is good for our pocketbook. I mean, it will save us money currently. It will save us money in the long run, and it will lead to economic and health benefits for everyone. So I'm really excited about it, as you can tell. Sure. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to work with these folks. Invite you to come to our meetings. I think we meet the second and fourth Thursdays at 4:30. And most everybody will be going with. They want to go on the tour of the watershed. So we'll let you know about that.
Thanks for representing us at the Southwestern region. Hey,
Oh, yeah, and really, if any of you would like to come, we've been absent for
Yeah.
a few years. I
it's
think.
always the Monday before our board meeting. It's what really
Yeah, it
throws.
was last night.
I studied most of them on that night.
Got a chance to talk with Senator Corbin. Thank him for the money he's given us. Talked to Luke Silver. He said the congressman's trying to get us money for an electric police vehicle.
Absolutely.
So they were there, so you had an opportunity to talk with them. Clyde, Maggie, Canton wasn't there last night. They were supposed to be, but they weren't. And then Haywood County all had good representation.
Good.
And other folks in the region too. The Southwestern Commission, they do a good job, and we can probably even get more help from them. So
Yeah, Zip was the chairman of that board over there. I guess he's probably, it's time to come off from somebody else's stuff.
I'm not the chair now, maybe Constance. She led the meeting. Constance, she's in great. Commissioner there.
Yeah. Thanks again.
Anyway, I enjoyed it. Food was good. So really, it's 6:30 every 2 months. There are not that many meetings.
And they feed you.
But it's a good opportunity to meet and talk to people.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move on. Well, that's communication. Do you have anything, Julie?
No, sir.
Anthony, you have anything?
No, sir.
John?
I've got a couple there.
Oh, yeah, we passed up there.
That's all right. That's all right.
I
wouldn't bother you, except I need to ask you something. I need your permission to apply for a $3,150,000 grant. Electricities is working with its membership and offered to its membership the chance to apply for a GRIP grant, which is Grid Resilience and Innovation and Partnership. This is part of the same federal money that Councilman Dixon was just talking about. We did a pre-application, and Waynesville was permitted by the EDA to provide a full application, and we're eligible for that $3,150,000. I mentioned this to you because it does have a 25% match, and as Chuck knows, almost all of the grants that the Biden administration are offering have 25% matches. That's going to be 714,000, but it's going to be over a 4-year period, which would be 178,005. So for 714,000, we can leverage 3,148,000. What this grant does is it would permit us to install a full AMI meter reading system. We're the only electric utility around that doesn't have one. It also provides us with to add tremendous technical capabilities to our substation so that we can transfer load using a SCADA system, sequential data and acquisition system. So these are improvements that I don't think we could afford otherwise. And because this involves this type of match, I wanted to get y'all's nod before I submit the formal application Monday.
And John proposed this 2 years ago, so.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
And
I think it's great.
So if you remember during your retreat, Misty mentioned that our budget is slim, being nice. We need your advice and suggest maybe April 16th as a time, or any date that week. We need to meet with you and get your guidance on how you'd like your budget constructed. It's not going to be a real pleasant meeting, but it's necessary. We want to provide you with a budget the first week of May that meets your policy guidelines and that has no surprises in it. So if you could look at your calendar and see, maybe during that week. Well, April 16th is a Tuesday. And I usually choose that because that's Tuesdays are kind of Tuesdays. 2 Tuesdays are meetings and 2 Tuesdays aren't. So I just chose a Tuesday. We can meet on a Friday from noon to 5 or from 8 until noon. We need about 3 hours of your time at the most.
So you're suggesting doing Tuesday, the 16th in the evening?
Yes, but again, I'm completely open.
I have two standing meetings that on the third Tuesday of every single month. So
Okay,
I would
well, that
not
goes,
be able to
That's
attend.
when's out.
anytime. We just need your guidance.
What about a Friday?
I'm good.
Friday the 19th.
She could do Fridays, you like morning three,
It doesn't matter, just that Tuesday, like I said, I don't get home. 11 o'clock.
what's better for you,
I can do, well, I can do the 19th. I won't be here the 12th, Friday the 12th.
19th.
19th would be fine.
If we're doing evening, you would rather,
I don't, I cannot do Friday evenings.
yeah, no, what about Wednesday evening?
Wednesday's fine.
Wednesdays are fine.
We're
Wednesdays are fine.
We're full service staff. We'll appear when you want
Wednesday.
Yep, Wednesdays I don't have.
Wednesday the 17th?
Wednesdays.
Probably not in the morning, but.
Yeah, in the evening.
Would you like a light meal?
Yes.
Okay, steaks. Since we're asking, since we're asking for money, there'll be steaks and baked potatoes, a really nice sweet tea. And
There will be grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup.
With-
Peanut butter and jelly
with
sandwich.
jalapeno.
Yeah.
That's just slim, we better watch out.
So we're looking at the 19th at
17.
17.
You need a motion on that grant?
No.
I don't really need a motion on the grant. I just want you to understand, if you get the grant, it will be a significant match. I don't want you to be surprised.
Everybody good with that?
Anthony and I were nodding very.
So to get $3 million.
Yeah. But it would be since you're setting a special meeting, you probably should set that motion.
I'd like to, yes, for the 17th.
I move that we meet on April 17th at what time?
6
p.m.
6.
For 3 hours, you're gonna be.
Yes.
Well, it could take an hour. It could take an hour. I'm gonna talk fast. We will have a menu. Our goal would be for you to say, okay, we'll take this. We don't want this. So we're not gonna throw you 50,000 numbers. We're gonna be throwing you programs, and you'll say, yes, we'd like to budget this program. No, we don't want to budget this program.
Could we meet at 5? Does that work for you?
5 works.
We can
I've
do
got
5.
the planning board density meeting at from 2 to 4 that day. So
Are you doing that, Anthony, also?
Yes.
Can you get that back?
yeah,
Can you get back to 5?
No,
Okay.
well, they're having the meeting already.
We're already having a meeting.
We can go earlier if you want to.
We probably need that hour.
yeah.
Okay, so I move that we meet at April 17th at 5 p.m.
So you'll be right here. I mean, you'll be at the town hall when you meet it for your density meeting.
No, that's me and Anthony.
Okay.
Yeah, right over there.
I'm trying to figure out a good place for us to meet.
We can probably meet over there.
Okay, we'll set it up at the town hall. Okay.
So we need to put that in the
Need-
motion.
I need a second.
Yeah, the
5 p.m. at night.
I got a second.
Town hall.
At the town
at
hall.
the time.
Got a second with Judy, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
The only thing I have question is the Sutton property. Do you know anything on the Sutton property?
I do not. I can find out and let you know as soon as I find out.
Please. My wife threw something out to me that, they say, well, it's for sale, and how come there's not a for sale sign on the property?
I'd have to call, it's in the hands of Kurt or Pat. It's in the hands of
No,
Kurt.
it's a court order, I think. It wouldn't be a sign.
He's been appointed by the court to distribute. What's the legal term, Chuck? When he's been offered.
Petition to partition.
That's it, the
Will mean
petition.
A public sale.
So
We
I'll
don't
find
usually
out.
advertise for that.
I'll try to find out and I'll send everybody a note.
Yeah, please,
When you find out when it's actually for
that's
sale.
probably the one of most things we get
Okay.
hammered at, is about that property still up there.
Want to keep it in the family?
The roof off of it.
If I want to get a bulldozer over there.
If there's no more communications, then I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Second, John, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm not.
Candace is the only one opposed.
I'm out of
She wants to stay here later.